Okay, good morning everybody. My name is Realini, I work for RSE and I will share this presentation with Livio the Chicchis from FIRE. The presentation will be about one of the main outcomes of this project that everybody can see online, that is the platform that contains the database, the good practices and some other information about the European industry. The contents of this presentation are first of all the platform structure, then the analyzed sectors, how we collected data, a presentation on how the database was built and how it appears on the website, and a presentation of the library section that contains all the information about good practices and some other information, and the surveys section. First of all, the portal structure. The portal structure is divided in three parts that are the database, the library, and the surveys. So let's check whether this works, otherwise we have screenshots. No? Okay? No problem. And the portal, as I said, is structured in three parts. The first is the database. The database contains the raw information on all the projects and the measures of energy efficiency that we analyzed during the project. Then there is the library that contains the best practices from literature and the good practices identified in ERSE project. And then there is the surveys section that contains the results of the surveys that were conducted with different stakeholders like ESCOs, associations, policymakers at the beginning of the project in order to understand how energy efficiency was perceived in industry. The database, as my colleagues have previously said, contains data about different sectors. Of course, we couldn't examine all the sectors in the industry, so we decided to focus on manufacturing industry that is as NACE code C, and we had to focus on some sectors we had to select. So in order to select, we tried to understand which were the most interesting parameters that we could see. So we looked at final energy consumption, energy cost per added value unit, number of employed persons in the sector, gross added value, economic energy efficiency potential, taken from literature of course, and technical energy efficiency potential. And at the end we selected these sectors that are not in order of ranking, they are just in order of NACE code, that are food and beverage, pulp and paper, coke and petroleum, that is a small sector but has a huge potential for energy efficiency, chemical products, non-metallic minerals that we split into glass and ceramics and cement, metallurgy that we split into iron and steel and other metals, and machinery. The data were collected from the different enablers that Marcus has already presented that come from Italy, UK, Poland and Austria, and the data were collected from the different financing mechanisms that are available in those countries and the different auditing mechanisms that are available in those countries. And at the end we collected almost 3,000 energy efficiency projects that were analyzed one by the four enablers. If we open the website in the database, we can see the one above is showing how it appears online on the website, and you can see some data that you can access from the homepage that are company size, the year in which the measure has been put in place, the incentive scheme, whether it is a good practice or not, which country provided the measure, a classification of the measure that, in my opinion, was one of the most interesting parts, that is the taxonomy. So in the taxonomy we can classify each measure in a specific process or in a specific kind of interventions. For example, we can say that it's a heat recovery and has been done on the crystallization process in food industry. So it's something that allows us to have a statistical analysis of the database with a process detail that is important to understand the replicability of the practice, and then the reference sector and the NACE code that are related, of course. And these informations can be sorted by field using the white sorting mechanism that we have above, and can now be downloaded both in Excel format through the green symbol and in PDF format. Either the whole database, the filtered section, or the page that appears on the screen. Then we have some fields that are available for visualization. So when we click on one record, we can see the details of that record, and they contain more information than the ones that we have in the main page and the ones that we can download. And these fields contain some interesting data about the measure, like the technical life, a detailed description of the project that is both in the local language of the country that provided the measure and, of course, translated in English, the saved energy carriers that can be from 1 to 5, a baseline consumption and savings divided by energy carrier, and the performances of that project that are calculated using the KPIs that Marcus has presented before. The last feature of the database are the queries. Through the queries, we can read and download specific data from the database. And the queries allow to select some records from the database using the criteria that are highlighted there. So, company size, implementation year, reference scheme, country, the taxonomy, the generic one that is common to all sectors, and the specific that is only for the sector or only for one sector. Each sector has its own, whether it is a good practice, and the reference sector. We can use just one query, or we can combine them and so obtain different results. And also these data are available for download in PDF format. Now I leave the floor to Livio that will speak about the library.
Thank you, Anna.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Anna, for the introduction. I'm Livio the Chicchis and I work for FIRE, the Italian Federation for the Energy Efficiency. Well, in this second part of the intervention, I would like to focus on RSE library. RSE library, which is composed by four main tasks: the country analysis, the technical analysis, the process schematics with best and good practices, and the fact sheets. In the previous intervention, my colleagues have already described a bit some of these tasks, and also in the following intervention, other colleagues will focus on some of them. In my intervention, I would like to focus on the process schematics of the best and the good practices. As already said, the best practices are that practices which was taken from the literature, which was the sources used to select these best practices, the brief documents which contain the best available techniques, but also the Energy Star Guide and the IATD website, the IATD which stands for Industrial Energy Technology Database. In the table at the left of the slide, you can see all the sectors involved in the analysis, and for every sector you can see the sources used to take the best practices. On the other side, the good practices are the core of the UMRC project, and are that practices which satisfies the three following criteria. They are energy efficient, they are technical, feasible, and they are economic, sustainable. How these practices have been chosen, Marcus has already described this. We have started from the whole database, which was composed by about 2,900 records. Then was performed 3 steps. The first step was a statistical analysis, which was will concentrate on the replicability of the interventions. In a few words, the more was replicable an intervention, the more was exportable also to other sectors. Then there was the KPI ranking done thanks to the involvement of the neighbors expert, which was the last step, so the engineering expertise. At the end of this process, we selected our 157 good practices. So how many good and best practices we have selected from our analysis? You can see in this table all the sectors involved, and for every sector the number of best practice, of good practice, And the last column, the good practice, which was fitting exactly with the best practices. You can see we have 613 best practices and 157 good practices. The sector which has the major number of best practice was iron and steel, followed by pulp and paper. On the other side, the sector which has the major number of good practices was the pulp and paper. But also food and beverage, which was the focus of the validation, the sector which was the focus of the validation of the project. So a great number of good practices selected. Now, let's start the website. Unfortunately, internet doesn't work, but I've prepared some screenshots so that you can see how the website works. If you go on the UMersi website, the link is reporting in the bottom of the slide. You can go on the UMersi website and clicking on library, select a sector, you will see all the sectors involved. Clicking on the sector you are interested in, you will go to the schematics, the so-called schematics. This is an example for the glass sector, and you can see for every box there is every box represents the phase of the process, and for every phase are collected all the intervention which are best or good practices. How we can distinguish it? It's simple, because the good practices has the small UMersi logo near the name. So if a practice has the UMersi logo, that is a good practice. The other are the best practices selected from literature. We have we have the interventions related to the process, but also the cross-cutting technologies, the so-called cross-cutting measures. Which are what are these cross-cutting measures? Are the interventions which are horizontal, so are applicable in all the phases of the process. An example: the variable speed drives, electric motors. We can also have some good practices between these cross-cutting measures, but they are interventions very innovative, not as simple, as also said before, not a simple variable speed drives, which was not the focus of the UMersi process. This is an example of a good practice file. So if you click on the name with the logo, it will open a PDF file that you can freely download from the platform. This is composed by several sections. You can see general description of the title of the good practice, the sector, the phase. There is firstly a general description of the measure, then more detailed focus on the technology, also always a description. Then, last but not the least, there are a lot of information about energy performance, which was all taken from the database. So it means that was taken from the interventions made by, collected by the stakeholders in our countries. There is a lot of information about, for example, about energy saving, information about the baseline of the technology, and about other key performance indicators. There are info about cost, payback, for example, cost of investment or payback time, the reference scheme which can support this technology, and the last, the recurrence both in the merged dataset and in the recurrence in different countries. As I told before, the more is recurrent a good practice, the more is exportable to other sectors, which consideration are made in the last column. On the other side, this is an example of a best practice file. This is taken from literature, so it is more poor compared to a good practice file. There is a general information also there about, also here, about the description of intervention, more detail about estimated savings, but they are always taken from literature. So, as you know, interventions proposed by literature not always are very effective, very consistent. It is useful to have a comparison, to have a landscape of the intervention, but surely there is less information about that could be taken from a good practices. And in the right of the slide, you can see an example of cross-cutting technologies. In this case, there is only a general information about what is cross-cutting technologies, and there are all resources in which you can focus to have more information about the cross-cutting. Okay, this was the focus of the best and good practices. The other parts, which will be more deepened in the following interventions, but I would like to introduce them. Always clicking on the library, you can go to, you can download other PDF documents which are technical and country analysis. Technical analysis is, as said by name, is an analysis of the main processes in the selected sectors, which provides information on energy consumption in the different phases. Otherwise, the country analysis is a collection of statistical data about the industrial sector in the different European Union countries, which contain the main economic results of the selected sectors. And clicking on the library, you can also download the fact sheets. Fact sheets are an infographic document, and they provide a summary of the findings in the selected sectors. You can, I think you can find the fact sheets outside this room if you want to have a look. And they provide statistical information about good practices and more general information about the sector, with also recommendations and policies for everyone. Finally, in another button of the platform, you can go to the surveys section. Surveys which have been conducted by by partners and gives some information, some opinion of the stakeholders about the platform and in general about the whole process, the whole project. Three different types of stakeholders has been involved: companies, ESCOs, and sector association. If you click on this link, as you can see here, you can download the PDF results of the surveys and several graphs which resumes the results of the surveys. Okay, I've been concluded. Thank you for the attention. If you have questions, feel free to